I thought my girlfriend was cheating, but what she was really hiding broke us forever. I once read that love dies the moment you start hiding your phone face down. I laughed at that. Back then, I used to think I'd never be that guy, the one who squints at his girlfriend's screen when she's not looking, who counts how many times she unlocks her phone and wonders who's on the other end. But then again, no one ever thinks they'll be the jealous one. Until they are. It started small. Isn't that always how these things begin? A late night at work. A shower that lasted longer than usual. A text she typed a little too quickly and cleared a little too fast. I wish I could say I ignored it. But my mind is like a dog with a bone. Once it starts chewing, it won't let go until it's splintered. So there I was, a month ago, lying awake next to her while she slept with her back to me. Her phone on her nightstand, face down. I stared at it like it was a bomb waiting to go off. Maybe it was. Maybe I was the bomb. It didn't help that Sarah, my girlfriend of 3 years, had started acting like she was always on the verge of a confession. She'd catch my eye over dinner and look away too fast. She'd come home smelling faintly of cologne I didn't recognize. She'd leave the room when her phone rang, every single time. I asked her once. Casual, stupid, obvious. Hey, who was that on the phone? Just work stuff. At 9:30 at night? Work stuff? She was a dental assistant, not a surgeon on call. But I nodded like an idiot and pretended I bought it. That night, I dreamt she was laughing with someone else in a restaurant I couldn't afford. I woke up sweating, half tempted to shake her awake and demand answers to questions I hadn't even asked yet. The next morning, I did what any rational, sane, completely unhinged boyfriend would do. I checked her phone. I wish I could say I found something. Some flirty text. Some suspicious photo. Some sign that my gut hadn't turned traitor on me for nothing. But there was nothing. She was clean. Spotless. Not a single text that wasn't about her mom, her sister, or her dentist boss. I felt sick with relief. And then I felt worse. Because if she wasn't hiding anything, why did it feel like she was? It should have ended there, right? She was clean. I was paranoid. End of story. But my mind wouldn't let it drop. So when she said she was staying late again one Tuesday night, some emergency paperwork that couldn't wait till morning, I didn't just nod this time. I waited an hour, grabbed my keys, and decided to follow her. I know what you're thinking. That's insane. And it is. Trust me, I know. But when you convince yourself you're being played for a fool, you'd rather be insane than blind. I parked 2 blocks from her clinic and waited. The lights were still on inside, so maybe she really was finishing up paperwork. Or maybe she was finishing someone else. I stared so long my eyes watered. An hour later, she came out. Alone. I ducked so low in my seat I nearly dislocated something. She didn't go to her car. Instead, she started walking down the street, coat pulled tight, head down like she didn't want the world to see her face. I got out and followed on foot. She walked 3 blocks to a tiny cafe I'd never noticed before, one of those cozy places with dusty fairy lights and mismatched chairs that probably serve coffee so strong it could dissolve your teeth. She stepped inside and I hesitated at the door, peering through the window like a creep. Inside, she sat at a corner table. She checked her phone, then tucked it away. 2 minutes later, a man slid into the seat across from her. He was older than me, older than her, too. Neat suit, graying hair, glasses perched on the edge of his nose like he'd read every lie ever told and didn't believe any of them. I couldn't hear a word, but I saw her hand him an envelope. He flipped through it, nodded once, and slipped it into his briefcase. She looked tired, resigned, not flirty, not romantic, just defeated. What the hell was in that envelope? Cash? Love letters? Blackmail? My stomach did somersaults. I could have walked away right then, gone home, pretended I'd seen nothing, buried my suspicion in a shallow grave. But I'm not wired that way. So I did the worst thing I could have done. I pushed open the cafe door and walked inside. Her head jerked up so fast she nearly knocked over her coffee. For half a second, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. Then her eyes went flat, her mouth a thin, cold line. The man glanced at me, then at her, then back at me, like he'd just found himself in the middle of a soap opera he hadn't signed up for. I stood at the edge of their table, my hands shaking in my pockets. My mouth was dry. I tried to sound calm. Failed miserably. Sarah, who's your friend? She didn't answer right away. Her fingers drummed on the table. The older man cleared his throat, pushed back his chair, and stood. I'll give you 2 a moment, he said, voice low and polite, like he did this sort of thing every Tuesday. Sarah didn't look at him. She just stared at me, wide-eyed, cornered, furious. And under all that? Something else. Something like shame. I had followed my girlfriend because I thought she was cheating. But in that tiny cafe, with a stranger's untouched latte still steaming between us, I realized I had no idea what the hell I just walked into. And worse, I wasn't sure I wanted to know. The man with the glasses didn't even glance back as he left. He just slipped out the cafe door like he'd never been there at all. I thought about following him. Maybe tackling him in the parking lot. demanding he explain why he was sitting across from my girlfriend like they were conspirators in some cheap spy flick. But I didn't move. My feet were nailed to the floor. Sarah hadn't said a word yet. She just sat there, staring at the door where he'd disappeared, her shoulders bunched up like she was bracing for impact. I sat down across from her. My chair screeched so loud half the cafe turned to look. Let them. I didn't care anymore. Who was that? I asked. My voice cracked. God, I hated that how small I sounded. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she picked up her cup, her hands trembling so badly the coffee rippled over the rim and dripped onto the table. She didn't notice. Or didn't care. Who was that? I tried again, slow and careful, like I was talking to a skittish dog. Finally, she looked at me. Her eyes were glassy but dry. Sarah was never the crying type. If she ever shed tears, they did it in private, behind a locked door I was never invited through. He's no one, she said. No one. I barked a bitter laugh. No one you're slipping envelopes to in secret? You've got a weird definition of no one, Sarah. She flinched at my tone. Good. Let her flinch. I'd spent weeks walking on eggshells for her. I was due a few broken shells. The waitress drifted by, a kid with purple hair and too much eyeliner, and froze when she caught our faces. She gave us the polite, terrified smile reserved for couples about to ruin everyone's lunch with a breakup fight. Then she pivoted and left us alone. Smart girl. Sarah pushed her cup aside, wiped her damp hand on her coat sleeve. I can explain, she said. Then explain. She opened her mouth, closed it again, looked at the ceiling like maybe the words were up there, taped to a light fixture. Not here, she muttered. Why not here? He was here. I jabbed a finger at the empty chair. You didn't mind meeting him in public. She winced at my tone again. Her hands found each other on the table, knotting together like she could wring the truth out of her own fingers. Can we go somewhere else? Please. I thought about saying no. About making her squirm in this sticky cafe booth until she spat out every secret she'd been hoarding. But my brain was buzzing too loud, my heart pounding too hard. I didn't want an audience for whatever nuclear bomb she was about to drop on my stupid, suspicious head. Fine. I shoved my chair back so hard it nearly toppled. She flinched again, not at the noise, but at me. Like I'd become someone she couldn't quite recognize. Maybe I had. We didn't speak as we walked to the car. She followed 2 steps behind, like a guilty kid trailing her dad after being caught stealing candy. She didn't reach for my arm. I didn't offer it. I unlocked the car. We got in. The silence between us was so heavy it pressed on my chest, made each breath feel like I was swallowing gravel. Halfway home, I couldn't take it anymore. You seeing him? I asked, eyes locked on the road, because if I looked at her, I might swerve into a tree. No, she said immediately too immediately. Then softer, it's not like that. Then what is it like, Sarah? My knuckles were wide on the steering wheel. Because it sure looked like a payoff to me. She let out a sound, not quite a laugh, not quite a sob. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. What? A payoff. I pulled over so hard we jolted sideways. A horn blared behind us. I ignored it. I turned to her, my mouth dry as dust. You paid him. She nodded. Tiny, stiff knots. Who the hell is he, Sarah? She didn't answer. She just reached into her coat pocket and pulled out her phone. She unlocked it, no hesitation, and shoved it into my hands. Here. Look. Go ahead. I stared at the screen. Her messages were open, same bland, innocent thread I'd combed through before. Mom. Sister. Dentist boss. Nothing else. No secret chats, no flirty nicknames, no hidden folder of scandalous photos. What am I looking for? I snapped. She pointed at the last message. A phone number I didn't recognize, no name attached. The bubble was short. Got the final payment today. We'll be in touch with results. I squinted at her. Results of what? She closed her eyes. When she opened them again, something in her face had hardened. I hired him to follow you, she said. For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. I replayed her words in my head, waiting for them to rearrange into something that made sense. They didn't. You hired him. To follow me. She nodded. No tears. No apology yet, either. I thought you were cheating on me. I laughed. I actually laughed, a raw, ugly sound that made her flinch again. I felt like I was losing my mind. You thought I was cheating? So you hired some guy to tail me around like a criminal? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I leaned back in my seat, staring through the windshield at nothing. The streetlights made halos in the night. I wondered if the people driving by could feel the black hole sucking the air out of my car. All those nights I'd been too busy obsessing over her lies, she'd been obsessed with mine. Except there were no lies. Not for me. Not really. The irony tasted like blood in my mouth. I turned to her, my voice low and shaking. So that envelope. That was my life in there, huh? Photos of me buying groceries, picking up dry cleaning, going to work. She didn't flinch this time. She just whispered, I'm sorry. It didn't feel like enough. But what else could she say? I put the car in drive and pulled back onto the road. We didn't say another word the rest of the way home. I don't remember much about the drive home. Just the white noise of the tires on the road and Sarah's reflection in the passenger window, her face pale and small, like she'd shrunk in the last half hour. Maybe we both had. At one point, I glanced at her hands. She kept rubbing her left thumb over her right palm, over and over, like she was trying to wash off something sticky. I almost asked her what she was thinking. Then I stopped myself. I didn't really want to know. When we pulled into the driveway, neither of us moved to get out. The house loomed ahead of us, the porch light still on because she'd left it for herself when she thought she'd be sneaking back in alone. Funny how you notice these tiny domestic kindnesses after you've both ripped each other open. She was the first to speak. I didn't know how else to be sure. I laughed, a hollow, humorless bark. So you hired a stranger to stalk me? That's her version of being sure. She didn't snap back. Didn't defend herself. She just stared at her knees, nodding once like she agreed with me. I wanted her to yell. To fight. To accuse me of something real, at least. But there was nothing left to accuse each other of. No affair, no secret fling, no hidden Tinder profile. Just two idiots who decided to poison the well before either of us had even taken a sip. You could have just asked me, I said finally. The words felt pathetic the second they left my mouth. She turned to look at me, and her eyes were bloodshot in the glow of the dashboard lights. And you would have believed me if I'd said I wasn't cheating? I opened my mouth, closed it again. We both knew the answer. I'd spent weeks reading suspicion into every sideways glance and late-night phone call. If she'd asked me outright, I would have lied, not because I was guilty, but because that's what you do when you feel cornered by someone who doesn't trust you. You dodge. You hide. You make it worse. In the end, I just pushed the door open and got out. She did the same, quiet as a ghost. We didn't wait for each other. We went inside like roommates who'd run out of things to say 3 years ago. Inside, the house felt too warm, too full of shadows. I kicked off my shoes and watched her drift toward the bedroom like she was underwater. For a second, I thought she'd slammed the door behind her. But I heard the creak of the closet instead, hangers scraping the rail, the soft thud of a half-zipped suitcase hitting the floor. I stood in the hallway, listening to the sound of my relationship folding itself into neat piles. I wanted to stop her. I didn't want to stop her. Both feelings existed in the same breath. She came out 20 minutes later with her overnight bag slung over her shoulder, the same one she used when she stayed at her sister's place. She stopped when she saw me. We stared at each other like strangers waiting for the other to speak first. You don't have to go tonight, I heard myself say. My voice was dull, like someone else was speaking through me. She shook her head. Yeah, I do. I almost asked her to stay anyway, almost begged her to tell me there was some salvageable scrap of trust left to patch us together again. But the truth sat there between us, ugly and undeniable. We'd both gutted it the second we decided our fear mattered more than our honesty. She brushed past me toward the door. I caught the faint smell of her shampoo, mint, and lavender, the same bottle that sat on our shower shelf like it owned the place. I wondered if she'd packed it or if she'd just leave it behind, a final ghost haunting the tiles. Her hand was on the doorknob when she paused. I didn't find anything, you know. I let out a humorless laugh. Same. She nodded, almost grateful for that tiny confession. Then she opened the door. Sarah. I don't know why I called her name. Maybe I thought I'd squeeze one last real thing out of us before she vanished. She turned. Her eyes were shiny in the porch light. Yeah. Where will you go? She shrugged. Maya's probably. Her sister, the default safe house. The place she ran to when life here felt too tight, too noisy, too heavy. I nodded. She nodded. Neither of us stepped forward for a hug, or a kiss, or even a pat on the shoulder like old friends. We just stood there in that stale hallway, the final moment stretching so thin I thought it would snap. Good night, she said. Good night, I echoed. Then she was gone. I didn't lock the door behind her. What was the point? The only thing worth locking up had already left, and neither of us knew how to get it back. I sat down on the bottom step of the staircase and stared at my phone on the coffee table. I thought about calling someone, a friend, my brother, my mom. Telling them what? That I loved a woman so much I convinced myself she was lying, and she loved me so much she'd done the same? That we'd both been so terrified of betrayal we built it ourselves? I didn't call anyone. Instead, I sat there in the quiet house, listening to the tick of the hallway clock, the hum of the fridge, the creak of the pipes in the walls, all the small, faithful noises that didn't care if I'd been faithful too. At some point, I lay down on the couch and stared at the ceiling until my eyes burned. I thought about the way she'd looked at me in that cafe, cornered, ashamed, furious. I wondered if she was lying awake at Maya's, replaying my face the same way. Maybe she was. Maybe she wasn't. Maybe it didn't matter anymore. Trust is such a stupid, fragile thing. You don't even notice it when you have it. It's just there, invisible, like oxygen. But the second it's gone, you're gasping for breath, clawing at empty air, wondering how the hell you're supposed to live without it. I closed my eyes and told myself I'd sleep. I didn't. The sun came up and the house stayed empty. I'd half hoped she'd come back, pounding on the door with some new truth, some half-broken apology we could use as glue. But she didn't. And I didn't chase her. It wasn't pride that kept me still. It was just the cold, ugly truth. You can't follow someone who's already stopped looking back. I didn't do anything dramatic after Sarah left. No drunken phone calls at 2 a.m. No half-baked plan to win her back with flowers she'd throw in my face. I just existed, day by day, in a house that still smelled like her shampoo and stale toothpaste. It's funny how much of someone's life clings to yours even after they're gone. The pink toothbrush next to mine. Her hair ties looped around the doorknob in the bathroom. A single mug in the sink, hers, with the chipped handle she never let me throw out because it is character. For a while, I let everything stay where it was. It felt like proof that she might come back. If I kept her toothbrush, maybe she'd pick it up again. If I didn't toss the half-empty shampoo bottle, maybe she'd knock on the door at midnight and say she'd made a mistake. But weeks went by. Nothing happened. I saw Maya once at the grocery store. She spotted me by the frozen pizzas. She was always more polite than she needed to be, so she gave me a stiff nod instead of pretending she hadn't seen me. "How's Sarah?" I asked, because I'm an idiot. Maya raised her eyebrows like she couldn't believe I'd even asked. "She's fine," she said, and walked away before I could say anything else. Fine. Sure. I hope she was. I hope she wasn't. Both at the same time, which probably made me a bastard. I didn't want her miserable, but I didn't want her skipping through fields of daisies either. Not yet. Not when I still woke up at 3 a.m. with her name stuck in my throat like a bone. People asked what happened. Friends. A few of hers, a few of mine. I gave everyone the same line. Just drifted apart. Nobody ever argues with that. It's the universal lie for breakups that are too complicated to unpack over beers or at the office microwave. Drifted apart. Like we were boats on a calm lake, not two people who'd both built a paranoid bomb and sat on it until it went off. A month in, I tried to date again. I thought it would fix me, or at least distract me. I downloaded the app I'd accused her of probably having, back when my mind was still a crime scene I refused to dust for prints. I swiped. I matched. I even met up with one of them, a woman named Jess, who laughed too loud and talked about her ex like she wanted him to die of an allergic reaction to peanuts. We sat at a bar and pretended we cared about each other's jobs. I smiled when I was supposed to, nodded when she told me about her cat, drank too much beer so I didn't have to hear my own thoughts echoing between her sentences. At one point she leaned closer and said, "You're cute when you zone out." "Where'd you go just now?" I could have lied. Said something flirty. Said she distracted me. Instead, I told the truth, or at least part of it. I was thinking about how trust is just an idea we all pretend is real until it isn't. She blinked. Okay. I forced a smile and changed the subject. We didn't see each other again. After that, I stopped trying to replace Sarah with other people. It wasn't like I was some tragic romantic martyr. I just couldn't stand the polite small talk, the hollow laughs, the stupid dance of, "Hey, maybe you won't ruin me the way the last person did." It all felt like lying in advance. Instead, I threw myself at distractions. Work. Weekends fixing the house, tightening screws that didn't need it, repainting baseboards just to cover up scuff she'd probably left with her shoes. I tried to clean her out of the place one brushstroke at a time. But it's amazing how much a person seeps into drywall. One night, I finally grabbed a trash bag and went through the bathroom. I dumped the pink toothbrush, the mid-and lavender shampoo, the half-empty conditioner bottle that smelled like her hair on my pillow. I even scrubbed the bathroom mirror because I kept catching my own reflection and seeing her standing behind me, like she'd appear if I just blinked hard enough. When the trash bag was tied off and dumped outside, I stood in the hallway like an idiot, staring at the space where her shoes used to sit. That tiny corner by the door looked too clean, too lonely. It hit me that sometimes people don't leave ghosts behind, they leave empty rooms, and the emptiness haunts you worse than any ghost ever could. A week later, her sister texted me out of nowhere. She wants to know if you found anything she left behind. I read it twice, feeling my throat tighten. I wrote back, "Just some hair ties and a mug." I tossed them. Maya left me on read. Fair enough. The truth is, I hadn't tossed the mug. It was still in the sink, waiting for me to decide whether I'd rather keep it or smash it. I left it there so long it grew a ring of old coffee at the bottom, a stain I couldn't scrub away. Fitting, I guess. Some things stick no matter how hard you try to scrub them out. One night, I found myself looking through old photos on my phone. Us at her sister's wedding. Us drunk in bed with pizza boxes, grinning like idiots. Us on the couch, her feet in my lap, my hand tangled in her hair. Back when trust felt like air, invisible, everywhere. I could have texted her. She hadn't blocked me. I could see her status pop up sometimes. Online. Typing. Then nothing. Maybe she did the same with me. Maybe not. But I didn't write her. I didn't beg her to come back. I didn't even say I'm sorry. What would be the point? We both ripped up the same promise, stitched it back together wouldn't bring it back to life. So I left the photos where they were, a mausoleum on my phone. And I went to bed in a house that sounded louder than ever, every creak and sigh reminding me there was no one left to hear them except me. Time doesn't heal anything. Not really. It just buries things under new distractions, enough chores and deadlines and Netflix shows and polite nods from coworkers who pretend they don't see the crater in your chest. I got good at pretending too. Good enough that people stopped asking if I'd heard from Sarah. Good enough that sometimes I could walk through the house without looking at the corner where her shoes used to pile up. I learned how to cook for one, how to laugh at other people's jokes without feeling like my smile was borrowed. I even thought about selling the house once. Put it on a listing site, got as far as talking to a real estate agent who smelled like cheap cologne and optimism. He walked through the place, rattling off words like open concept and natural light, as if the sunlight in my kitchen didn't feel different without her there to drink her awful herbal tea and hum off-key songs while I made toast. In the end, I didn't sell. I told myself it was too much hassle. The truth? I was afraid I'd see her ghost on every blank wall of any new place too. Might as well let her haunt the room she'd actually lived in. One Saturday, about 6 months after she'd left, I found myself at the grocery store in that half-dead corner of town where the produce is always sad and the bread is either stale or moldy. I'd run out of excuses not to buy real food. I just grabbed a box of cereal I'd never eaten when we were together, something sugary and stupid, like I was 12, when I felt it. That shift in the air, like someone had cracked open a door to the past and let all the stale memories tumble out. I turned, and there she was, Sarah, standing by the shelf of overpriced granola bars, looking down at her phone, thumb flicking at the screen like she was texting someone more important than me. Maybe she was. Maybe she wasn't. I don't know which version stung worse. For a second, I thought about ducking into the next aisle, pretending I hadn't seen her, that she hadn't seen me. But then she looked up, and that was that. Our eyes met, and for a second, we both froze. She looked older, somehow. Not aged, but worn in. Her hair was shorter, chin length now. I remembered how she'd always threatened to chop it off when it got too heavy but never did. Looks like she finally pulled the trigger. It suited her. She looked good. Of course she did. She gave me a small, polite smile. The kind you give a neighbor you barely know when you bump carts in the frozen aisle. Hey, she said. Hey, that was it. That was all the history we got, condensed into a word that felt too small for what we'd been, too big for what we were now. I gestured at her cart, reflex more than curiosity. Stocking up. She laughed. It was a quiet, careful thing. Yeah, Maya's kids are coming over this weekend. They eat like locusts. Right. How is Maya? She's good. She hesitated, then added, she asks about you sometimes. I raised an eyebrow. And what do you tell her? She shrugged. Same thing you'd tell anyone about me, probably. We drifted apart. There it was again, that lie we both agreed to keep telling because the real version was too pathetic, too ugly. No one wants to hear. We spied on each other until there was nothing left worth spying for. I nodded at the cereal in my basket. Well, looks like I'm surviving. Living the bachelor dream, dinner for champions. She glanced down and smirked. Cookie Crunch? Really? Hey, it's got vitamins now. Says so right on the box. She smiled wider this time, not polite, not warm either. Just neutral. Like someone flipping through an old photo album they're not sure they want to keep. There was a moment then. One heartbeat where it felt like we both might say something real. Maybe I'm sorry again. Or I wish we'd been braver. Or do you ever miss me too? But we didn't. Because what's the point of digging up a grave you both agreed to bury? We'd made our choices, paid our private investigators, tracked each other's shadows until we turned on ourselves. There was no version of us now that didn't taste stale and sad. She cleared her throat. Well, I should get going. Don't want to be that weird lady loitering by the granola bars. I wanted to say don't go yet, but all I did was nod. Yeah, sure. Good seeing you, Sarah. You too. She turned her cart and started to roll away. Halfway down the aisle, she paused and looked back. For 1 second, her eyes softened, not enough to invite anything more, but enough to tell me I hadn't imagined it all. That once, we'd been real. Take care of yourself, okay? She said. You too. And then she was gone, just like that night in the hallway. Just like every chance we ever had to get it right. I stood there a minute longer, cereal box tucked under my arm, feeling like the world should have cracked open and swallowed me up. But it didn't. It never does. Life just keeps rolling, whether you've earned your next breath or not. I checked out, drove home, put the cereal away in a cupboard that still had a chipped mug I'd never found the nerve to throw out. And I sat down at my kitchen table, staring at the empty chair across from me, the one that would never be hers again. I let that final truth settle in. We hadn't lost each other to lies or lovers or betrayal. We'd lost each other to fear. That was the cruelest part. We'd both loved each other enough to be terrified of losing it. And that's exactly how we killed it. A few weeks after I ran into Sarah at the grocery store, I found her hair in the bathroom sink. Not her actual hair, I'm not that crazy, but a single strand, clinging to the edge of the drain like it had been waiting for me to notice. I must have missed it when I cleaned out the bathroom the first time. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe part of me left it there on purpose, like a breadcrumb I'd never follow. I stared at it for longer than I'd admit to anyone. It's stupid. What a tiny piece of someone can do to you. One hair, so thin it practically disappears when you touch it. And there I was, right back in the bedroom where I'd first started to wonder who she was texting at midnight. It's amazing, really, how fast you can ruin something solid. We weren't bad people. We weren't liars by nature. We were just two people who started squinting at each other too hard, looking for cracks that didn't exist until we made them ourselves. If you'd asked me back then, I'd have said I wanted the truth more than anything. But that was a lie. What I really wanted was reassurance, the kind you can't ever get from someone you don't trust. So we did the worst thing you can do when you're scared. We both went looking for proof the other one was exactly as unfaithful as we feared. And when we didn't find it, we just dug deeper until we found something worse ourselves. Sometimes I think about calling her. Not to beg for her back. I'm not that delusional, but to tell her I'm sorry I didn't believe her when I should have. That I wish she'd believed me too. That I wish we'd had the guts to just say, hey, I'm scared. Please tell me I'm wrong. But what would that fix? She's probably out there now, telling some new version of me that she's not hiding anything. Maybe she checks his phone while he showers. Maybe he checks hers when she goes to the store. Or maybe, if she learned more than I did, she doesn't. Maybe she trusts him like I should have trusted her. Maybe she's better now. I like to think she is. I like to think I am too. Though if I'm honest, I still check my own phone sometimes like it's going to betray me. Old habits die hard, even when you know exactly what they cost you. The house feels smaller now. Not empty, just stripped down. There's space where her shoes used to sit. A bare spot on the bathroom shelf where her face wash used to live. Sometimes I catch myself putting my keys down too loudly when I get home, like I'm waiting for her voice to float in from another room. Sure, you'll wake the neighbors. There's no one to wake now. It's not all sad, though. Some nights, I sit on the couch and watch dumb movies she would have hated. I cook dinner at midnight if I feel like it. I leave dishes in the sink for days. No one's here to roll their eyes and wash them for me. The silence can be comforting once you stop expecting it to break. I ran into her sister again last week. Maya cornered me at the gas station. We made the usual awkward small talk. How's work? How's the house? Seen any good movies? All the pointless filler you use to patch over the big, ugly gap you're both pretending not to see. When she turned to leave, she paused. You know, she said, she never wanted it to end like that. I almost laughed. Yeah, well, me neither. She looked at me for a long time, like she wanted to say more. Then she just nodded and walked away. That's the thing about these stories. People want there to be a villain. Someone to blame, someone to point at and say, that one ruined everything. But sometimes there isn't. Sometimes the villain is just two people who didn't know how to trust each other enough to leave the door unlocked. A few nights ago, I finally threw out that chipped mug. I didn't smash it in some dramatic fit. I just slipped it into the trash between a pizza box and a takeout container and tied the bag shut before I could change my mind. I stood at the curb watching the garbage truck rumble away with that last piece of her. It didn't feel like freedom. It didn't feel like closure either. It just felt quiet. I don't know where she is now. I hope she's sitting on someone else's couch, laughing at stupid jokes, leaving her phone face up on the coffee table without a second thought. I hope her stomach doesn't twist when he comes home late. I hope she doesn't look over her shoulder in cafes, wondering if someone's following her. I hope she's braver than we were. Sometimes people ask me if I'd do it differently, if I just asked her outright instead of playing detective. I wish I could say yes, but the truth is, I don't know. Back then, I didn't know how to sit with my own fear. I needed proof more than I needed her. And she needed proof more than she needed me. We got exactly what we asked for. And it cost us exactly what we never deserved to lose. If there's a lesson here, it's not some greeting card line about trust being fragile. It's this. Suspicion is the one thing that'll always find what it's looking for, even if it has to build it out of nothing. I wish I could tell her that. I wish she'd tell me she knows it too. But all that's left now is a strand of hair that I flushed down the drain, and the stupid hope that next time, for both of us, we'll believe the truth before we start digging for lies.